Hello, and welcome to another OpenMarch tutorial. In this video, we're going to talk about how to import audio and everything that you need to know about defining the tempo in OpenMarch so you can align your music exactly to your show. We highly recommend before you create any pages in OpenMarch that you define all of your tempo first. Our tempo editing functionality is currently fairly limited, and so it can be pretty painful to try and change the tempo afterwards. This is something we're actively working on, and please check our website for the most updated information. The first thing you're going to want to do is open the music menu, which you can do by clicking the music note on the left side of the UI. From here, there's a pretty self-explanatory dropdown that says audio file. This is exactly how you're going to import an audio file. OpenMarch lets you have multiple audio files, so you can have one with a metronome, without a metronome, and you can switch between them. Currently, we just support having one, so if you have multiple movements, we recommend downloading Audacity and splicing all your movements together for now. Let's import an audio file by clicking the dropdown and pressing Import Audio File. We have a very good song here called the Washington Post March, if any of you have ever heard of it. New and upcoming composer. Once you import the audio, you'll see an audio waveform now shows up on the bottom timeline. Go ahead and press play if you have any pages, and you'll hear the audio. Fantastic. Now, if you haven't imported any tempo yet into your show, your UI might look a little bit different into mine. You'll likely have this UI that shows you the instructions for adding a new tempo group. OpenMarch lets you define tempos in two ways. You can either, one, import your own music XML file from a notation software like Dorico or MuseScore, or you can manually define the tempo yourself like you might do in an app like Tonal Energy. I'm lucky enough that I have a music XML file, so let's go ahead and import that. Press the Import Music XML File button, and then click the Music XML file. You'll see that after a little bit of processing, MuseScore will ingest the Music XML file and create tempo groups based off of that. Please note that this feature is still very much in development, and we are actively trying to make it better. If your specific Music XML doesn't work with OpenMarch, please let us know so we can add your Music XML file to our test suite and make the software better for everyone. Now, if I press play on the timeline on the bottom, you'll see that our pages line up exactly to the audio. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can get better detail. Great. Those marchers are really flying around. Great drummer. Now, while this music XML file is great, it didn't have what I really want. It didn't have rehearsal marks. So let's go ahead and delete all our tempo and create something better. So let's define our tempo groups manually now. There's a few options that you have when making tempo groups. The first is a name, which is optional, a start tempo, in this case 120 BPM, an end tempo, also optional, our beats per measures, and the number of measures. Since our piece is at 132, let's start there. And then beats per measure is the same thing as a time signature. So for example, if you were in 4/4, the amount of beats you have per measure would be 4. If you were in 2/4, it would be 2. And then if you were in 3/4, you guessed it, it would be 5. Just kidding, it'd be 3. In the case of this march, we are actually in 2/2. Don't freak out, because OpenMarch doesn't actually care if you're in 2/4 or 2/2. The beats per measure is actually exactly the same. So we're going to define beats per measure as 2, and we're going to create 8 measures. Press the Create button, and you'll see that a tempo group shows up. Now, we can do a few things with this tempo group once it's created. When you press the Edit button, you'll notice that you can change the name of the group or the tempo. Currently, you can't change the beats per measure or the number of measures. This is just some growing pains of the software, as the beat storage is pretty complicated. Again, check our website. We're trying to actively make this easier. Let's go ahead and create another tempo group. You'll notice if you create a group with exactly the same tempo and no name, OpenMarch is going to combine them. Let's see what that looks like. Our first group, as you can see, is 8 measures. If I press create again with measures of 2 beats per measure and 8 measures, now it's 16, and there isn't really a differentiator between them. This is because of how OpenMarch stores tempo. If you want to separate these two groups, you either have to change the beats per measure or divide them with a different name. Let's go ahead and undo this. And I'm going to give this tempo group a name of A, as a rehearsal mark might be. Great. Now I have 8 measures at letter A. Let's do another one with B. I have 8 measures at B, and then another one with C. Great. Now, you might be asking, well, what if I want rondos, a rondo, mixed meter? That's what we'll get into right now. So let's say we have a start tempo of 132 BPM, but we want to slow it down in 2 measures to 80 BPM. Start tempo 132, end tempo 80. Beats per measure is still 2 because we're in 2/4 or 2/2. That's different. But since we only wanted this tempo change to happen over the span of 2 measures, we are going to change the number of measures to 2. Press create, and you'll see that 2 very different looking groups show up. Let's see what that looks like in the timeline. Our formatting has gotten a little weird, so let's go ahead and give that a refresh with Command R or Control R for Windows. If we scroll all the way over in the timeline and we find these new measures, it's pretty subtle, but you'll see that the time between each measure has gotten longer. Let's go ahead and check out those tempo groups again. What we have now done is we have created a custom group where each beat is individually defined. What we have now done is created a custom group where the tempo of each beat is individually defined. If you press the edit button in any of these groups, you can edit the tempo of each of these beats. Again, I'll widen the timeline a bit so you can see. Let's see what happens if I make the first beat of this tempo group a lot longer. Let's say 60 BPM. Save the changes. Our timeline snapped back a bit, but we scroll back and we see the first beat of measure 33 is now significantly longer than the second. Let's switch that back to 132. Scroll back again. And great, it's back and fixed. Now, if you recall, I wanted the tempo to go from 132 to 80, but the last tempo in our group is 93. This is because that OpenMarch is making a decision that when you have a retardando like that, it should get to the destination tempo on the downbeat of the next measure. So in this case, what it's expecting us to do is create another measure with a start tempo of 80. And that's a proper retardando. However, you might disagree with this because at OpenMarch, we don't know everything about music. And that's what's great about this tempo system is that it lets you customize the tempo exactly how you want it. So if you want to change it so that it gets to 80 on beat 2 of the last measure, you can do that. Again, it's all super flexible. If you want to add a tempo group in between another one, all you need to do is press the plus button for that tempo group and you can create one in the middle. If you want to delete a tempo group, you can press the trash can icon and you'll get a warning that deleting a tempo group that has any pages on top of it will delete that page. Again, this is something that we're working on and just part of the growing pains with open source software. The last thing we're going to talk about is creating mixed meter. Now, OpenMarch supports all mixed meter time signatures that are any variation of a 2+3 pattern. So you can have 2 + 2 + 3, 3 + 3 + 2, anything up to 30 that can have a variation of 2 and 3, OpenMarch can do. So let's create a bar of 7, 8 as an example. Bring the beats per measure up to 7, and you'll notice that a button that says Make Mixed Meter now became enabled. Go ahead and press that button. Now, our end tempo text box has now changed to a dropdown. Click on that, and you'll see a number of different patterns. Let's choose 2 + 2 + 3. We want 8 measures of that. And I want this at a tempo of 144. And I will create. You'll see that this is now a mixed meter measure, and you can see the pattern with the tempo group. When you define a mixed meter tempo in OpenMarch, the tempo is defining the quarter note of the mixed meter beat. So, for example, in 7/8, each quarter note is 144 BPM, and each dotted quarter note is 216 BPM. It's whatever the tempo is times 1.5. Like I said, you can do this with any variation of mixed meter, and you can go all the way up to 30, where you have all of these very useful options that you will definitely use. That's all for this OpenMarch tutorial. You now have everything you need to know about creating your own tempo to align your drill exactly to your music. A lot of this might be a little bit hard to understand at first. We're still working out the kinks and trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. So we'd appreciate your feedback or questions on Discord, Facebook, or please email us.